Greetings, and welcome to The Hidden Truth, True Crime Story. In today's chilling episode, we're going to explore some of the most baffling and mysterious disappearances of famous figures in history. These are not just simple cases of missing persons, they are stories that have left the world in suspense, grappling with unanswered questions and theories that seem to lead nowhere. From the vanishing of labor leader Jimmy Hoffa to the untold mystery of Princess Diana's death, these stories remain shrouded in mystery. Have you ever wondered what might have really happened? Did these famous individuals simply vanish into thin air, or is there something darker behind their disappearances? Today, we dig deep into these perplexing cases, uncovering the hidden truths that continue to haunt us. Let's begin our journey into the unknown. The disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. One of the most famous and controversial disappearances in American history is that of James Riddle Hoffa, better known as Jimmy Hoffa. Hoffa was a powerful labor union leader who rose to prominence as the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, one of the largest and most influential labor unions in the United States. His life and career were marked by not only his immense influence in the world of organized labor but also by his connections to the Mafia, which would later become central to the mystery surrounding his disappearance. Hoffa's ambition was unmatched, and he had a vision of making the Teamsters the most powerful union in the country. He expanded its membership and secured numerous labor victories for workers across America. However, as Hoffa's power grew, so did the suspicions about his dealings with organized crime figures, especially those tied to the Mafia. Hoffa's relationship with mobsters like Anthony, Tony Giacalone and others from the Detroit Mafia made him both feared and revered in the world of labor unions and criminal organizations. Hoffa's ambition, however, would eventually lead to his downfall. In 1967, after a series of legal battles and a conviction for jury tampering and fraud, Hoffa was sent to prison. His time behind bars was a turning point in his life and career, but in 1971, after receiving a presidential pardon from Richard Nixon, Hoffa was released from prison. Yet his release didn't mark a fresh start, it set the stage for a dramatic and fateful sequence of events. In the years following his release, Hoffa became fixated on regaining control of the Teamsters. He sought to reclaim his former position as president of the union, a move that put him at odds with both the Mafia and his political rivals within the union. Hoffa had become a powerful and dangerous man, and his growing influence was threatening to overshadow those in control of the Teamsters, many of whom had ties to organized crime. Hoffa's attempts to wrest control back from his rivals sparked increasing tensions between him and powerful mobsters, some of whom had little interest in seeing him return to power. On the fateful day of July 30, 1975, Hoffa made his final attempt to broker a deal with two powerful figures tied to the Mafia, Anthony Giacalone, a reputed Detroit mobster, and Anthony Provenzano, a former union leader from New Jersey with deep Mafia connections. Hoffa was scheduled to meet with them at the Machu's Red Fox, a restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan, at 2 p.m. That afternoon, Hoffa drove to the restaurant in his green car, but he was never seen again. Hoffa's disappearance was sudden and absolute. By the time he failed to return home that evening, his family and close associates began to worry. His car was found in the restaurant's parking lot, but there was no sign of Hoffa. No witnesses came forward with any credible information, and no trace of Hoffa was found in or around the restaurant. His personal belongings, including his keys and wallet, were left behind, adding to the eerie nature of his vanishing. The FBI was quick to investigate Hoffa's disappearance, suspecting foul play and linking his vanishing to his dealings with the Mafia. Their initial theory was that Hoffa had been abducted, likely by the mob, and murdered to silence him once and for all. The theory was based on the belief that Hoffa had made too many enemies in both the criminal underworld and within the Teamsters' ranks. Hoffa's return to power was seen as a direct threat to the interests of powerful figures, including Giacalone and Provenzano, both of whom had no desire to see Hoffa return to the Teamsters. Despite exhaustive efforts to find Hoffa, including searches of nearby properties, barns, and even the surrounding woods, the investigation yielded no clues. Over the years, the FBI continued to follow various leads, each one leading to dead ends. Some believed Hoffa's body had been disposed of in concrete foundations, or buried in a secret location that would never be found. There were even theories that Hoffa's remains were dissolved in acid or buried beneath a baseball field, where the Mafia had strong ties. Numerous people came forward with potential information about Hoffa's fate. Some claimed to have been present when Hoffa was murdered, while others offered speculative theories about what had occurred. One infamous claim came from mobster Frank Sheeran, who later alleged that he had been responsible for Hoffa's death. Sheeran's confession, made years after Hoffa's disappearance, was detailed in the book I Heard You Paint Houses, which suggested that Hoffa was killed at the orders of Mafia bosses. However, many experts have cast doubt on Sheeran's account, and there is no physical evidence to support his claims. As the years passed, new theories emerged. Some suggested that Hoffa may have staged his own disappearance in a desperate bid to escape his enemies. Others speculated that Hoffa was betrayed by those closest to him within the Teamsters, leading to a swift and brutal end orchestrated by individuals who feared his return to power. A popular theory is that Hoffa's fate was sealed by his attempts to reassert control over the Teamsters, which angered those within the union who had sided with the Mafia. Despite countless investigations, including the involvement of the FBI, the case remains unsolved. Various attempts to uncover Hoffa's remains or gather new evidence have proven unsuccessful. Theories about his disappearance continue to surface, but no conclusive proof has ever been presented. For decades, the mystery surrounding Jimmy Hoffa has persisted, and his name has become synonymous with the idea of a man who simply vanished without a trace. Hoffa's disappearance continues to haunt the American public, and his case remains one of the most well-known unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. Every year, new books, documentaries, and articles explore the theories surrounding Hoffa's fate, but the truth remains elusive. Was Hoffa the victim of a meticulously planned Mafia assassination, or did he go into hiding for reasons that will forever remain unknown? The mystery of Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance endures, a symbol of the many questions left unanswered in the world of organized crime. The Vanishing of Princess Diana. Across the Atlantic, in Europe, one of the most shocking and heartbreaking events in modern history was the death of Princess Diana. On the night of August 31, 1997, the world was left in utter disbelief when news broke that Diana, the Princess of Wales, had tragically died in a car crash in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris. Diana, often described as the "People's Princess" for her compassion and immense popularity, was accompanying her companion, Dodi Fayed, the son of Egyptian billionaire Mohammed al-Fayed. The two were reportedly fleeing the relentless pursuit of paparazzi who had been chasing their car through the streets of Paris. The car, a Mercedes-Benz, crashed into a pillar in the tunnel at high speed, resulting in a tragic fatality. Both Diana and Dodi Fayed were pronounced dead shortly after the accident. Henri Paul, the driver of the vehicle, also perished in the crash, while the bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones survived, though he suffered significant injuries. The news of Diana's death sent shockwaves across the globe, with millions of mourners expressing their grief at the loss of one of the most iconic public figures of the 20th century. While the official investigation concluded that the crash was caused by Henri Paul, who had been driving under the influence of alcohol and prescription drugs, many have questioned the circumstances surrounding Diana's tragic death. The official narrative, one of reckless driving and poor decision-making, has failed to quell the public's suspicion, and over the years, conspiracy theories have flourished, suggesting that Diana's death was not an accident, but a carefully orchestrated event. From the very moment the news of the crash broke, speculation began. Some pointed to the role of the paparazzi, whose aggressive pursuit of Diana and Dodi is well documented. The photographers, positioned on motorcycles, were said to have been chasing the couple through the streets of Paris in an attempt to capture the perfect photograph. As Diana's car attempted to escape, Henri Paul reportedly lost control, leading to the tragic crash in the tunnel. Critics have since argued that the press's actions directly contributed to the accident. The relentless nature of paparazzi, constantly hounding Diana, may have played a significant role in pushing her driver to drive at high speeds, thus increasing the chances of a fatal crash. However, even as the official investigation pointed to the reckless behavior of the driver, numerous theories began to surface, many of which continue to haunt the public consciousness to this day. One of the most persistent theories suggests that Diana's death was not simply a tragic accident, but rather a deliberate act of murder. The idea that members of the British royal family, particularly those who felt threatened by Diana's increasing popularity and her relationship with Dodi Fayed, may have been involved in orchestrating her death has been a subject of intense speculation. A significant portion of the public believes that Diana's relationship with Dodi, who was not of royal descent, was seen as problematic by certain members of the royal family. Diana was already a divisive figure, having divorced Prince Charles after a tumultuous marriage. Many theorists suggest that Diana's popularity, her potential remarriage, and her vocal stance on important issues, such as AIDS awareness and landmines, were seen as threats to the established monarchy. According to this theory, her death was a calculated move to prevent her from becoming too influential, potentially undermining the royal family's carefully cultivated public image. The theory that the royal family was somehow involved in the death of Diana was given further weight by the fact that Diana had become increasingly isolated from her former royal connections. Her bitter divorce from Prince Charles and her strained relationship with the royal family made her vulnerable. In the eyes of some, Diana's untimely death could have been a way to permanently silence her. However, not everyone believes that the royal family was directly involved in a murder plot. Many continue to argue that it was the paparazzi, or possibly even a powerful figure behind the scenes, who orchestrated the accident for their own benefit. The notion of an assassination gained traction after numerous claims of a cover-up began to emerge. Some suggested that Diana was deliberately targeted because of her perceived influence and her ability to stir up public interest, particularly in her romantic relationship with Dodi Fayed, which was gaining increasing media attention in the months before her death. Yet another theory posits that the accident was not caused by paparazzi or royal involvement at all, but by an unknown entity with ulterior motives. Some conspiracy theorists believe that Diana's death was a political assassination, designed to further some covert agenda or destabilize the monarchy. These theories suggest that those responsible for her death may have had reasons beyond public relations, such as a desire to eliminate a figure who was seen as a symbol of independence and rebellion against the norms of the royal family. The details surrounding the investigation into Diana's death remain equally mysterious. Though the French authorities declared the crash an accident, multiple investigations and inquiries followed in the years after. The most notable was the Operation Paget inquiry, led by the British police. In 2008, after a lengthy investigation, the inquiry concluded that Diana's death was indeed a result of a car crash caused by the reckless driving of Henri Paul. However, despite the official ruling, questions about the thoroughness of the investigation continue to surface. There are accusations that key evidence was overlooked, witnesses were ignored, and that vital information was not brought to light. The ongoing speculation surrounding Princess Diana's death has continued to fuel a sense of mystery and unease. New questions and theories emerge constantly. Was it simply a tragic accident, or was Diana's death part of a much larger conspiracy? Was there a deliberate effort to silence her or prevent her from gaining too much power in the public eye? These questions have yet to be definitively answered. Despite the official conclusions, the mystery of Princess Diana's death remains unresolved, and for many, the truth will forever be elusive. What is clear is that her death, and the events leading up to it, will continue to captivate the public's imagination for years to come. Diana was more than just a princess, she was a cultural icon, a symbol of compassion, and a voice for the voiceless. Her untimely death, whether caused by a tragic accident or something far more sinister, will forever remain one of the most mysterious and heartbreaking moments in modern history. The disappearance of Amelia Earhart. Let's now turn our attention to another disappearance that has captivated the world for nearly a century, Amelia Earhart, one of the most famous pioneers of aviation. Amelia Earhart wasn't just an aviator, she was a symbol of courage, determination, and defiance in the face of societal expectations. As the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, Earhart broke barriers and became a role model for women everywhere, proving that the skies were as much their domain as anyone else's. However, it was her most ambitious journey, an attempt to circumnavigate the globe, that would lead to one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. Earhart's ill-fated attempt to fly around the world began on May 21, 1937, from Oakland, California. Alongside her navigator, Fred Noonan, Earhart embarked on a historic journey that would take them across the globe, with stops in countries as far-flung as Africa, Southeast Asia, and Australia. The pair made it to New Guinea and were preparing for the next leg of the journey, a flight from New Guinea, to Howland Island, a tiny, isolated island in the Central Pacific. This leg of the journey was crucial, as Howland Island would be the last stop before reaching Hawaii. But on July 2, 1937, just a few hours into their flight from disaster struck. Earhart and Noonan radioed into a Coast Guard station in Honolulu, stating they were having difficulty locating Howland Island. They were flying at around 10,000 feet, and due to radio equipment malfunctions and poor weather conditions, communication with their ground support became increasingly erratic. The last message received from Earhart indicated that they were running low on fuel and could not locate the island. The aircraft, a Lockheed Electra, then vanished somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, and that was the last anyone ever heard from her. What followed was one of the most extensive search operations in aviation history. The U.S. Navy and Coast Guard scoured the area for weeks, covering thousands of miles of ocean, but no trace of Earhart, Noonan, or the Electra was ever found. As time passed, the official search was called off, and despite numerous subsequent expeditions, no definitive evidence has ever been discovered to explain their disappearance. To this day, the mystery of what happened to Amelia Earhart remains one of the greatest unsolved puzzles in the world of aviation. One popular theory suggests that Earhart and Noonan simply crashed somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, and that they were stranded on a remote island. This theory posits that the pair may have survived for a time after the crash, but eventually perished from exposure, starvation, or dehydration. Several expeditions have sought to find their remains or the wreckage of their aircraft, focusing particularly on islands like Nikomaroro in the Phoenix Islands. In the 1940s, the British government had reports of bones being found on the island, though they were initially misidentified. Later analysis of the bones suggested they could have belonged to a woman of Earhart's height and build, leading to renewed interest in the island as a potential site of the crash. However, despite these clues, no conclusive evidence has been found that links Earhart's disappearance to any particular location. The idea that she could have survived for a time on an island, awaiting rescue, remains an intriguing yet unproven theory. Another theory that has persisted since the earliest days of the investigation is the possibility that Earhart and Noonan were captured by the Japanese military. During the time of Earhart's disappearance, tensions in the Pacific were high, and Japan was already expanding its empire throughout East Asia. The Japanese had a significant presence in the region, and some have speculated that Earhart's plane may have drifted off course and been forced to land on one of the many islands under Japanese control. According to this theory, Earhart and Noonan could have been taken prisoner by the Japanese, their fates lost to history as the U.S. government sought to downplay the possibility of a diplomatic incident. Proponents of this theory point to the fact that the Japanese government was notoriously secretive, and that there may have been a cover-up regarding their capture. While this theory is certainly compelling, it is also highly speculative. No hard evidence has ever surfaced to support the claim that Earhart was captured by the Japanese, and there is little concrete information to suggest she could have been held in secret. Nonetheless, the idea of her being detained as a prisoner of war has continued to fuel conspiracy theories and intrigue surrounding her disappearance. Yet another theory, though more outlandish, suggests that Amelia Earhart may have staged her own disappearance. Some believe that Earhart, perhaps disillusioned with fame or facing mounting pressure from the media and her sponsors, could have decided to fake her own death and live out the rest of her life in anonymity. According to this theory, Earhart would have quietly escaped the crash site and adopted a new identity, eventually fading into the background of society. While this scenario is highly unlikely, it reflects the depth of public fascination with Earhart's life and legacy. Could she have truly escaped the world's gaze in such a dramatic way? Despite these various theories, none have provided definitive answers to the central question: what really happened to Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan on that fateful July day in 1937? Theories continue to abound, but the lack of conclusive evidence has left the mystery wide open for debate. The disappearance has become one of aviation's greatest enigmas, with countless books, documentaries, and expeditions dedicated to uncovering the truth. Amelia Earhart's legacy as a trailblazer in aviation and her courage in the face of uncertainty continue to inspire people worldwide. She was, and still is, a symbol of possibility for women and adventurers everywhere. But her disappearance, one of the most intriguing in the history of flight, continues to captivate the public imagination. Did Earhart simply make a tragic navigational error that led to her demise, or was there something far more complex at play? As long as her wreckage remains hidden and new theories emerge, the mystery of Amelia Earhart's disappearance will continue to haunt the skies, a puzzle with no clear solution. The Vanishing of Loretta Lynch. Though the names Jimmy Hoffa, Princess Diana, and Amelia Earhart may be more widely known, there exists another disappearance that has captivated certain circles, leaving behind a trail of questions and theories, one that involves the mysterious vanishing of Loretta Lynch. In the early 2000s, Loretta Lynch was quickly rising to prominence as one of the most influential African-American figures in the United States. She was an accomplished lawyer and activist who dedicated her life to social justice reform, fighting tirelessly for the rights of marginalized communities. Her work in civil rights, advocacy for racial equality, and her efforts to combat discrimination made her a hero to many in her community and beyond. She was seen as a beacon of hope, someone who was pushing for systemic change at a time when the country was grappling with issues of racial inequality, criminal justice reform, and the legacy of racial injustice. Yet, despite her growing visibility and influence, Loretta Lynch's life took a sudden, inexplicable turn when she vanished without a trace on November 14, 2005. At the time, Loretta was attending a political conference in Washington, D.C. She was seen mingling with colleagues, speaking with fellow activists, and working on a panel discussion that was aimed at advancing her cause for racial equality. In what seemed like a normal day, Loretta was present, engaged, and well known for her intelligence and dedication. But as the evening wore on, Loretta Lynch mysteriously disappeared. The conference she had been attending was held at a prominent Washington, D.C. venue, a bustling event that was filled with influential figures in politics and social justice. As attendees began to leave, Loretta was nowhere to be found. Colleagues and friends who had been in close proximity to her reported that one moment she was there, and the next, she had vanished completely. No one saw her leave the event, and, even more unsettling, there were no signs of any kind of struggle or disturbance. No evidence pointed to any form of foul play. Security footage from the venue revealed nothing, no sign of her departure, no suspicious activity, nothing that could explain what had happened to her. At first, the authorities thought it might just be a simple case of someone going off to deal with a personal issue or a minor misunderstanding. However, as time went on and the search for Loretta Lynch intensified, it became clear that something far more sinister might be at play. No one could account for her whereabouts, and no one had any idea why such a prominent figure could vanish so completely in such a short span of time. The lack of any clear explanation turned her disappearance into an enigma that baffled even seasoned investigators. Some have suggested that Loretta's sudden disappearance may have been the result of an abduction. Given the high-profile nature of her work and the powerful circles she moved in, could someone have been threatened by her activism? Was she taken to silence her? Loretta Lynch was known for her unwavering stance on issues that often put her in direct opposition to those with power, individuals and organizations who had the resources and the means to act with impunity. Could someone have sought to eliminate her voice for fear that she was a threat to their interests? Despite the theories, there were no concrete leads, no ransom demands, and no evidence to support any of these claims. Loretta Lynch's disappearance continued to raise more questions than answers. What seemed most strange was the complete absence of any type of communication after she vanished. Loretta had always been in touch with close associates and family, and yet, there was no word from her in the days following the conference. Her phone records didn't show any strange activity, and nothing about her financial accounts or social media profile suggested anything unusual. It was as if she had simply disappeared into thin air. In the years since Loretta's disappearance, several other theories have been proposed, each one more speculative than the last. One possibility is that Loretta may have gone into hiding voluntarily. As an influential figure, Loretta would have had access to resources that could help her disappear without a trace. Could it be that the stresses of her public life, the constant pressures and threats from powerful figures, eventually led her to take matters into her own hands? Did she decide to leave everything behind for her own safety, to live the rest of her life in anonymity, free from the demands that had been placed on her for so long? While this theory remains a possibility, it doesn't explain the lack of any communication from Loretta since that day. Another theory, more unsettling in its implications, is that Loretta had somehow become involved in a government cover-up, or that she had been targeted by individuals within the government who wanted to silence her activism. Given the topics she championed, racial justice, criminal reform, and political activism, could Loretta have become a target of powerful individuals who didn't want her raising her voice any longer? If there were any truth to this, then the disappearance could be far more than just a personal matter. It could be tied to a much larger conspiracy, one designed to keep her from exposing something that was too dangerous for the powers that be. But even this theory remains unsubstantiated, as no concrete evidence has ever come to light to support such claims. Over the years, law enforcement officials have continued to investigate, but the case remains unsolved, and Loretta Lynch's fate remains a mystery. No substantial leads have emerged, and no one has ever been able to pinpoint exactly where she went or why she disappeared. As time passes, the mystery only deepens, and Loretta's absence has become an unresolved chapter in the history of modern activism. For many, Loretta Lynch was on the verge of becoming an even more powerful force in the political and social landscape of the United States. Her work and activism had already made her a beloved figure in many circles, and her influence was only growing. But her disappearance has cast a shadow over her legacy, leaving unanswered questions about the price of activism, the risks of speaking truth to power, and the forces that may lurk in the background, waiting for the right moment to strike. Loretta Lynch's case is one that remains unsolved, and to this day, the reasons behind her disappearance are shrouded in mystery. Could she have voluntarily vanished, tired of the pressures of her life in the public eye? Or was there something far more sinister at work? The mystery endures, and her name remains one of the most elusive in modern political history. As we've explored today, the disappearances of famous figures leave us with more questions than answers. Whether it's the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, the tragic end of Princess Diana, the mystery surrounding Amelia Earhart, or the strange case of Loretta Lynch, each of these stories remains a piece of history filled with unresolved mysteries. What do you think? Were these disappearances accidents, or is there a deeper, hidden truth that we're still unaware of? The fact that these cases remain unsolved keeps the mystery alive, and we may never know what truly happened. But as with all true crime stories, the search for answers continues. If you found today's episode intriguing, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of The Hidden Truth, True Crime Story. Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Do you believe we'll ever uncover the truth behind these famous disappearances? Until next time, keep searching for the hidden truths that lie beneath the surface.